The next heading, the Romantic Individualist. Romanticism emphasized the individual over the institution and the person over the community. The American Romantic hero took many forms. In The Scarlet Letter, Nathaniel Hawthorne's Hester Prynne dared to put love and honor over the repressive rule of her town. In Moby Dick, Herman Melville's Captain Ahab let nothing stand in the way of his obsession with the white whale. In Leaves of Grass, Walt Whitman's ecstatic self celebrated its own joyful existence at the center of the universe. The next heading, the Transcendental Seeker. One type of romantic individualist was the person who sought to reach the sublime, a feeling of oneness with all that is beautiful and good. This private soul craved unity with the oversoul, a universal force that might be identified as the mind of God. As Emerson wrote, quote, "The individual is the world," end quote, and an individual could reach the sublime through the world of nature. Emerson and Thoreau defined this character type, but other writers and artists contributed to the quest for the sublime. Margaret Fuller edited the transcendentalist magazine The Dial, and the Hudson River School of visual artists painted landscapes that inspired a sense of the sublime in all who saw them. The next question, what literary themes emerged during this era? First heading, Westering. The myth of America began as a city up on a hill, but by the 19th century, it had become the garden of the world. The sheer bulk of the continent, with its treasury of natural resources, made continuous Western expansion a fundamental part of the national identity. Many Americans considered this movement west as a continental destiny. It became the right and duty of Americans to explore, expand, and exploit. However, if America was a garden, it was one being invaded by machines. This is a theme that continues to resonate in American literature. Page 221. Bright and dark romanticism. Romanticism had two faces, one bright and optimistic, the other dark and shadowed by evil. Emerson and Thoreau emphasized the sun is but a morning star aspect of romanticism, the bright part. They saw human beings as fundamentally good. Poe, Hawthorne, and Melville, on the other hand, were deeply disturbed by what they saw in the human heart. They believed that crime, cruelty, guilt, and self-destruction were the true earmarks of human nature. During the American Renaissance, writers explored both sides of the romantic impulse. The next heading, self-reliance. Trust thyself, Emerson advised. Think for yourself and act on what you think. Live deliberately, Thoreau advised. Make your own choices and do not let others choose for you. These principles have been built into American democracy, and they became fundamental themes of American culture. What applied to individuals also applied to the nation as a whole. The 18th century had seen the Declaration of Independence. The 19th century saw declarations of cultural independence. Self-reliance is key to why the American Renaissance happened at all. Literary culture had begun to grow, journalism and education prepared the ground, but it was extraordinary individuals who made it happen. Self-reliant men and women who thought for themselves and refused to let social, political, religious, or cultural institutions overwhelm them. We've got a little box here on page 221, The American Experience Developing American English, The Truth About OK by Richard Lederer. Americans seem to have a passion for stringing initial letters together. We use AM and PM to separate light from darkness, and BC and AD to identify vast stretches of time. We may listen to a DJ or VJ on ABC or MTV, or a crusading DA quoting the FBI on the CNN. Perhaps the most widely understood American word in the world is okay. The explanations of its origin have been imaginative and various. Some claim that okay is a version of the Choctaw affirmation okay. Others assert that it's short for the Greek ola kala, all good, or oren kundal, crackers, or chief old kukuku. The truth is that in the 1830s, there was a craze for initialisms, like our currently popular TGIF and FYI. The fad went so far as to generate letter combinations of intentional misspellings. KY for no use, OW for all right, OK for all correct followed. Ultimately, OK survived because of a presidential nickname President Martin Van Buren was born in Kinderhook, New York, and dubbed Old Kinderhook OK. Became the rallying cry of the Old Kinderhook Club that supported him for re-election in 1840. Van Buren was defeated, but the word honoring his name remains what H.L. Mencken identified as, quote, the most shining and successful Americanism ever invented, end quote. All right, let's turn to page 220. We're going to have some recent scholarship information here, inspired by nature, and this is the Gretel Ehrlich bit. Gretel Ehrlich, you can read with me, was born in California. She's worked as a ranch hand, a sheep herder, and a documentary filmmaker. As a writer, she's been profoundly influenced by living in Wyoming, a place of intense extremes and breathtaking beauty. Ehrlich is the author of 13 books, including 3 collections of essays, a memoir, and 3 books of poetry. Her many honors include the 2010 Penn Thoreau Award. She's best known for her nature writing, which has focused most recently on the island of Greenland. She writes, "We are all born on a particular spot on the planet with its unique seasons, weather, topography, mountains, rivers, rocks, storms, glaciers, skies, trees, and grasses, as well as all living things, help shape who we are, how we see, how we move through our days, and how we know who we are. Those of us who have been called nature writers are simply people who observe and write about the living planet, who witness the birth and death of its residents, who understand that we all share the earth equally, and who tell the stories that come from the earth." First heading on 223, from natural fact comes human meaning. The Inuit people of northern Greenland have a word, sila, that means the power of nature, weather, and human and animal consciousness is one and the same. No separation between the emotional weather inside ourselves and the natural forces on the outside that affect us. Nature writers are always writing about 2 things at once, the ecosystem and continent that is our mind and body, and the greater one of the world surrounding us. They show us how human meaning can come from natural fact. Next heading, a 1-room cabin on Walden Pond. Henry David Thoreau was one of the great natural history writers of all time. Broken-hearted over a lost love, he went to live on Walden Pond in Concord, Massachusetts for 2 years, 2 months. His friend and mentor, Ralph Waldo Emerson, a brilliant essayist, bought an 11-acre field on the north side of the pond, and in March of 1845, Thoreau, with Emerson's encouragement, built a 10 by 15-foot 1-room cabin. Then he borrowed a horse and plowed and planted 2 acres in white beans, corn, and potatoes. Next heading, an inventory of the natural world. Thoreau was 28 at the time, and he wanted to be free from the constraints of family and society. Reading widely, walking locally, writing obsessively, those were his priorities. He was not a great adventurer. Others at the time were searching for the Northwest Passage in the Arctic, sailing the seas of the world, traveling by covered wagon across the country. Thoreau knew that his inventory of the natural world and his insights into human consciousness could be achieved right where he was, on Walden Pond. He wanted to live simply and quietly, to live deeply, to listen and observe, to become intimate with a place. In so doing, he allowed the other landscape to shape the prose that came from within. Final heading, where we live holds the secrets of the universe. Quote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately," Thoreau wrote, "to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived," end quote. What we learn from Thoreau's life and writings is that anywhere we happen to live is good enough. We don't have to go to some exotic place to find ourselves or to understand the world. It's all right here for each of us. Each place holds all the secrets of the universe, the history of the world in a raindrop. Well, there you go. That's the introduction to Unit number 2. Let's now turn to some of the readings in Unit number 2. Thank you.